Are you looking to level up your author business?
Are you pounding your head against a wall, wondering what your next step should be? Then join me, Daniel Wilcox.
And me, Sacha Black, as we haul ass each week in a bid to level up.
Level up!
Come along for the ride as we delve deep into the business of writing,
Craft,
entrepreneurship,
and every level of the author journey. This is the Next Level Author Podcast.
Hello, Achievers, and welcome to episode 82 of the Next Level Authors Podcast, a podcast where we hold each other to account and track our step-by-step progress as we level up our author business. My name's Daniel Wilcox, and here with me every week is...
Sacha Black.
Sup, Sacha? How's it going?
Well, my life is a juxtaposition because I'm filled with joy still. I'm still full of joy, but I'm also in quite a lot of pain today. So
Joyful pain.
Yeah, I mean, it's not joyful pain. I have really bad dental issues that are just going to cost thousands of pounds to have fixed, and thus I haven't had them fixed and I'm in pain. So that's where I'm at. So I look a bit ragged today for listeners. Just maybe don't watch this one on YouTube.
Dental stuff is fucking horrible.
It is.
Just when you actually get like an infection or anything just happen, and it's never just the tooth. You know, like other pains, it's like, oh, my finger hurts a bit or whatever, but this is like, no, it's your entire face goes.
Yeah, exactly. And pretty much every time I've gotten on a plane to go and see my dad, I get some kind of dental issue. So it was like not a surprise that like literally 3 days or a week before I went, I got a dental issue. I've had to have emergency dental work in Holland twice. So
I will refrain from reading too much into that.
Apparently it's the air pressure in the cabin,
which you haven't yet been in.
No, but that is what caused the problems the other two times that I went, because the air pressure. So I have really small sinuses and I have sinus issues, and I've had surgery and they've like removed a piece of bone from my face and all kinds of stuff to like try and fix my sinuses, which is why I have dental problems.
Keep going. We can keep that in. I basically just fucking I tried to get back onto the screen and press the pause recording button. Carry on. It will be seamless.
Oh my God. It will be seamless because we have a goddess dealing with it.
But also because I was so quick that no one would notice there was a blip. We would have heard the recording stop. It's fine. This is staying in. Let's go.
Anyway, so I have sinus issues. I've had sinus surgery. They always cause dental problems. When you get in an aeroplane, the cabin pressure changes fuck with my sinuses, and that's what causes dental problems. But this time, I think like my brain was just like, oh, we're getting on a plane. Let's fuck you up a bit. So that's what's happened. Anyway, I'm also filled with joy because I've ordered a new computer.
Oh, yeah.
I have like a lot of boxes. I'm just waiting for the actual mini Mac to turn up. It has been dispatched now, but it arrives the day I land, so I'm having it delivered to my mum's house, so I probably won't get it till the next day. So yeah, week tomorrow, and then like I'm gonna spend all Friday like setting up my new computer, which is like, good.
It's so goddamn fast.
I hope so. What I would really like is a computer that doesn't spend 85% of the day overheating. That would be nice. So yeah, how about you? How's your week been? You, sir, are not where you ought to be.
I'm on location.
You are.
I'm in a location. I mean, you're always in a location. Yeah, no, I decided to take a bit of a road trip this week and test to see if I can take my work truly mobile. So, I mean, I've tried this before, and then it had been around times where I didn't have very, very pressing deadlines, so it just turned into a bit of a holiday. Whereas this week I do have, I have a deadline next week for a book I've got a hand in, so I do have to get work and stuff done. And what actually tends to happen, and this is such a like first world problem, but what actually happened was the last time I went and visited friends, I was very clear to say like, I have work to do, so like while you work, I will work, and then we can like hang out like in breaks and stuff. I remember
see where this is going.
Yeah, I turned up one of my friends' houses. I was staying with him for a couple of days, actually, like the guy where I am now. And he was like, oh, good news, I've got the next 3 days off. And I was like, like, that's awesome. But at the same time, like, I do need to get work done. And so this time round, I waited till the very last minute and kind of like surprised him with it. So about 2 days ago, I was like, I'm coming to yours for 3 days. He was like, oh, I don't think I'll be able to get that off work. I'm like, good. So he's out delivering and doing stuff, and I've basically just got use of his flat for the day. I'm going to slam some words, and then tonight I'm going to meet up with him and his missus, and we're going to go for a meal at a place called the Giggling Squid, which sounds very, very interesting. It's all sort of like Asian infused food.
I have to say, he has changed his house around because that wooden stuff was not there before, and I really like it.
This he did when he moved in.
So you must be in a different location then.
Yeah,
than
I would have
last time.
been probably about 10 foot that way, because this only stretches like to the other side of like this bookshelf thing that you can kind of just about see on the corner.
Okay.
I can just turn.
It's a very nice. So for listeners, it's a very nice sort of pallet slack wooden wall.
It is old pallets, yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like he's sort of slotted wooden, like as a feature wall kind of thing. So yeah, it's very nice. I really like pallet stuff like that. Yeah,
I do. Interesting tidbit as well. When he's hanging stuff on the wall, he doesn't actually create holes. He just uses the holes that were already in the pallet.
No way, that's amazing.
There's like loads of little holes around here you can just put a nail in. But yeah, so that's kind of me. I've just been off on location and trying to visit people. It's been a lot of driving, but I've managed to so far keep on top of my work, and provided that I can slam words and get things done today, that should continue. So it's nice. And the other good news as well is things are actually moving forward on my house, which is gorgeous. So I think, touch wood, as of yesterday, I may have sent off the last bit of paperwork I need to do my side. And I got a message from my estate agent saying that we should be starting to discuss dates soon, which is very exciting. But also it's one of those things where suddenly like the reality of the move is going to be fitting in. And I freaking knew it. Well, we don't know dates yet, but I knew in my heart of hearts it was going to be in November, which for new listeners or for listeners that haven't heard me harp on about bootcamp enough, I am basically balls to the wall in November running a bootcamp with lots of different people.
If you need me to help run the odd session during move, let me know and I can help run a session or two.
Thank you, really appreciate that.
No, that's all right, no worries.
Yeah, no, that'd be cool.
It'll cost you dearly. No,
I know. I'll hit the fucking end of it.
I'm joking. I got you,
and I got favor. You, no,
I got you.
I helped with boot camp, so I have to do the things. But yeah, I just knew it was going to be. Still, that it will
listen, be. You've got people who will help. I'm happy to help, so just let me know what you need.
Appreciate it very much. What's something that you've enjoyed this week?
Probably. So one was ordering all my new computer. That was a bloody nightmare that took 3 hours. But sort of the consequence of that, obviously, I'm very much enjoying.
Yes.
Sorry, just trying to stretch. The Way of the Argosy by Sebastian de Castel, which is part of the Spellslinger series. This is a prequel, one of two prequels that the publisher sent me. So I've got Way of the Argosy and Fall of the Argosy. Spellslinger is the first one. And I sort of went in without any expectations, really, and I really bloody enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. Nice. So I get to interview him next week. I've got to finish this one before that. And then last but by no means least, creating the masterclasses. Oh my God, Dan.
Game changer.
Game fucking changer, sunshine. I am like in love with masterclasses, and I haven't even taught the first one yet. What I have realized is that I am an active thinker. So you know how some people can just like think about things whilst they're doing stuff?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not that person. I need active time to actively think about the thing. And in creating the Villains Masterclass, it is forcing me to actively think about villains, actively think about what I know, process, and then sort of be able to explain that, and then go deeper than I've ever gone before. So like there is new content and fresh stuff in there that nobody's going to have seen before. And it's just like, yeah, I'm loving it. And in doing that, I've come up with a whole new book idea on villains that I'm very excited about. Mm-hmm. And so like whoever comes to this masterclass will get sort of like sprinkles and elements of that. Like I'm not going to go into book level detail, obviously, in a masterclass, but yeah, I'm going to cover some of the things that, yeah. And so I just forgot like how much joy I derive from this kind of deconstruction and looking at what I know, and like by deconstructing things, working out tools and tricks that I can put into my own writing. And I really, really love that. Somebody told me when I was talking about it on a Zoom the other day that I was literally glowing when I was talking about it. And I was like, that is how I feel about these classes. So what I can say with
villainy.
Yeah, what I can say with absolute certainty is that this will not be the last masterclass I do.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah. So that's me. How about you? What have you enjoyed this week?
I'm going to say reading. And the reason I say reading is because I basically took control of my reading pleasure. I can't phrase it any differently than that. So I am going to be writing a book in November with my dear friend, Julie Heiner. And there are elements of snow and mountains and that kind of stuff. So a friend of mine recommended a book by Dan Simmons called The Terror, which has been adapted into like I think a TV series and audio series. Like it's quite big. And I started reading the book, and it's really well written. It is basically about a ship called the HMS Terror that gets stuck in the Northwest Passage in the 1800s, and you've got ice and everything basically just slowly growing and compressing the ship, and you've got obviously all like people getting to the point of starvation and how they have to survive on the ship. And I got about 2 chapters into it and went, I don't want to read this right now. And I've got a real thing at the minute for the last few years, where basically when I start a book, I just finish it, even if I speed read it through to the end. And as I was reading it, I was like, this isn't a bad book. This is a good book, but it's not the book that I want to be reading right now. Because obviously, like we've spoken before about like my dive into sort of fantasy and that kind of dark elements of that. And I've just been dying for ages to get to the first book in the Witcher series. So I haven't DNF'd this book. I basically shelved it for later, The Terror. But I was like, rather than reading a book that I feel like I have to read just for the sake of it, find a book that you fucking enjoy. So that you're enjoying in that moment. And
I wonder if this is why I read so many books, because I did that to 2 books last night. I like couldn't get into either of them. So I was just like, read them later.
Yeah, maybe.
Off you go.
Maybe. But yeah, I got Blood of Elves. And it's like,
is that the first one?
It's the first one, yeah. And it's written like, as I'm reading it, I'm like, this feels much more me right now, in terms of like, I'm not in any way comparing myself to, I don't even know how to pronounce the author's name.
Andrei something or other.
Andrei Sapkowski. I'm not in any way comparing myself to them in terms of like prose level and stuff, but it's much more closer to the type of stuff that I write rather than what The Terror was, which is a bit more very, very dense historical fiction.
Dan, you are talking to number 1 competition. You are allowed to compare yourself when you talk to me.
Okay.
That is like one of the biggest strands of competition is comparison. I know they always say like don't compare, but like we compare. So you could, this is a safe space.
Well, no, I mean, like I don't compare myself to other writers because I am me and I am my own voice. So like, but I think it is very, very similar to the stuff that I kind of write and like how I say it in terms of you know, the POV, the kind of like levels of description, the character interactions and stuff. It's much more, and what it's, because I'm basically like really in a spin and really deep in my thoughts at the minute about all this fantasy stuff, because as I mentioned before, when I started writing, it was with this like fantasy idea. And although I'm definitely not returning to that idea, there are elements of that I did love that are kind of like resurfacing again. And I'm looking at ways to potentially like weave them through. And just one of the things I've always really struggled with fantasy, I say always because I've not approached fantasy really since then, is with fantasy, in the beginning, I felt like it was harder because I felt like I really had to convey the picture of what was in my head very, very accurately. So if there was sort of these creatures that I'd made up, I had to get them really specific and stuff. And what this book is reminding me is that you can be as general as you want and just let the reader imagine the world. Like there are elements that you can be vague about that people will assume. So I don't have to describe, for example, like my specific type of elves or, you know, dwarves or anything else, because people fucking know what elves and dwarves are from other books. So you can focus on the characters and the plot and let the world kind of weave itself. So it's been a trip down studying basically and just enjoying it along the way.
Most individualization comment ever, by the way. Well, I don't compare myself. Nobody is like anybody else.
That's true. That's how I live my
I know,
life.
it's like number 1 individualization. I love it. Also, do you know what I love more? That I can see a little glint because you've sort of found a little bit of joy in reading and finding that thing that you're like, that you can, don't know what action this is, like that you, that you're
a
like
cat swatting at a bit of yarn.
a fly, a butterfly, that you're, that little thing that you're grabbing onto. And what I hope is that in finding that particular book, you can then find connected ones, like not necessarily all by the same author, but like other ones in the genre that match closer to what it is that you're after. How many books do you feel you need to read to kind of get enough before you then can set yourself off?
Oh, I think that's a very difficult question. I mean, my head goes to like minimum 20.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, like I want to nail this.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I feel like you can get structure and you can get kind of the pieces of what you need by maybe half a dozen to start pushing you in the right direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really want to kind of go wide with different authors to just see how they all approach those kind of tropes and the genre itself, and just there's work to do. But I'm also in no rush because I don't think it'll be anything that I actually get to until maybe second, third quarter of next year.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've got plenty of time just to
percolate. Well, keep me updated, because I really like seeing you happy, like as with the things that you're like reading, and like when you get in those thought spirals and stuff, it's nice to see.
Yeah, it's nice. It is really refreshing because it's, like I said on one of my questions before, it feels like I'm learning again.
Yes, Daniel. And that is why I am very much enjoying the masterclasses, for that exact reason. Like, I feel like I'm pushing myself outside my comfort zone, and that is where I am happiest, is when I am learning and pushing and growing and developing. And so like I love that you are also doing that.
Yeah, you don't want to just go stale and moldy and just stick to the walls, whatever that means.
That is a delightful description. No,
Horror.
I do not want to do that.
So we are combining a couple of sections: quarterly confessional. So Q4, my god, Q4 challenge has been posted on the Facebook group. Lots of people are getting involved and jumping in and pledging the things they want to do, which is awesome. We are reading all your comments and all the things that you want to do, so we are watching you during these next few months. The forfeit for anyone that doesn't complete the challenge that they've signed up for is to eat 3 cream crackers, or that what was it? The cream crackers doesn't translate to US. It was saltines. 3 saltines, I think it was the equivalent. And then you have to try and whistle. Was it Jingle Bells or A Christmas Tune? So that's
I can't even whistle, so this is going to be fun if I fail.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. Just feels like a really dry throat. And then we've also announced the things that we're going to do. So I've put Dan will, and this one kind of, I'm not sticking this, like if I fail this one, this isn't on me. Dan will move house. Like I'm like 98% confident it's going to happen this side of this year. I'm going to be attending a coaching apprenticeship, and within that I'm going to be actioning all the tasks and really making sure that I dive into that and involve myself in the opportunity. I'm going to be sorting out my Activated Authors 2022 calendar and actioning the first 2 months of content, because I've got a lot of stuff coming up in January and February. And I will be running an author survey for my productivity book, so keep an eye out for that stuff. And then Sacha, did you want to read yours out?
Well, are you going to update on whether or not you've done anything?
Yeah, I'll get to that in a sec.
Oh, okay, so I will read 30 books. I'll get a logo for the thing, and I'll create a plan for a series of masterclasses and edit accepted anthology stories.
Okay. Are you going to update us?
Well, yeah, I didn't know if we were swinging back to you.
There's no plan. So I'll go for mine. So, as I said, the house move is moving forward. I do think probably within the next 4 or 5 weeks, maybe I'll be, able to actually get into the place. I'm very excited for that because I've been doing a lot of driving over the last year. The apprenticeship starts on, so I get jumped into a Facebook group on the 1st of November, and then it begins on the 14th of November. There's a series of Zoom classes and things. So I'm going to be attending those and sort of really getting myself involved and making notes and anything they send out, finding ways to make that applicable to what I do. So I'll update when they begin. My Activated Authors calendar, basically the calendar is built. I just need to actually look through all the different things I want to do and plan when they're going to be done. And then one of the projects I'm hopefully going to be actioning this week and getting that rolling, which is very exciting. And the author survey is on my to-do list to basically build, which I'm probably going to look at next week.
Cool. So reading 30 books. I've read 7 since the beginning of the month. I've got logo for the thing. I found 2 people, and Dan had, just before this, Dan said that he would send me some more. So thanks for doing my action for me.
I found someone for a logo, and I say, what kind of logo are you after? And you say a logo. It's the same as walking into a buffet and going, I'd like food, please.
Yeah, so also I need to do some research next week. Plan for a series of masterclasses. I haven't started on that yet. Edit accepted anthology stories. I have done 1 round of hand edits, but which was I did when I was reading. So I just basically need to start typing those up. But I had aimed to get it done this week and I didn't. So in all honesty, it's probably going to be when I'm back from wherever I'm going next week, Holland. So yeah.
Nice. Okay. Patreon. So no new patrons this week, but for anyone who wants to get more from the show and join our live Q&As and also get early access to every single episode, you can go over to patreon.com/nextlevelauthors. We had our Patreon live on, it was last night. I was going to say Tuesday. It was last night, which was a lot of fun. And we got into subjects like cows made from fucking butter and the differences between different countries and how they speak. And just because I don't think we've announced this or kind of reminded people of this as well, that if you do join our Patreon, then all of those Q&As are recorded. So there is an entire backlog of conversations in which me and Sacha are talking to people and we discuss everything. And I'm going to there is no limit to the stuff we've discussed with people. It's insane.
Including butter cows, TVs and combine harvesters.
Butter cows, TVs and combine harvesters.
Yeah.
Bed tits.
Bed tits. And bed tits. That was my favourite thing last night, with the bed tits.
No shock. And yeah, the next Patreon live will be on Sunday, the 14th of November.
Yeah.
Did you want to add something to that? I feel like I interrupted you.
No.
Good. So for people who haven't yet taken a look over at my bootcamp over at danielwilcox.com/bootcamp/nano, I am running a Nanowrimo Bootcamp for anyone that wants to jump into a community. I am running sort of group word trackers, live Zoom sprints, daily motivation on my Activated Author Slack group, and you can get involved. And basically last year I managed to get a 78% rate, or the people in my group managed to get a 78% rate of people who completed Nano and hit the 50,000 words, with the national average being just under 20%, which I'm very, very proud of. So I am going to be pushing hard to try and make that happen again with everyone in that group. So if you're a bit nervous about getting involved in Nano, if you want a group that is very, very supportive and you want to make sure that you hit those 50,000 words, then check that out, because that will be closing in the next couple of weeks. Not long till Nano.
I know.
What have you got, Sacha?
My Villains Masterclass is going to be running on the 31st of October. It is going to be fantastic, even if I do say so myself. If you would like to write a villain character as a protagonist, you probably want to come and attend. If you would like to improve your villains, you probably want to come and attend. Yeah, I am so excited to share all the knowledge and help you create better characters, and you can find out more about that at sashablack.co.uk. Navigate to shop, and it's like the first item at the moment.
Beautiful. Level ups.
Level up. I just need to open Slack. So we have got Rianne Stephanie, who published Kingdom of Lies on August the 12th and got asked to be part of a charity anthology, which is coming out in April 2022.
Exciting times. Congratulations. Yep. That's huge. Comments. Last week's question was,
what sparks joy in your business? Michael says, a lot of things about this job spark joy, but it's hard to beat the feeling of pushing that publish button on a new book. Even if you've done it before, so much planning and work goes into that moment that it's hard not to feel a sense of joy each time. Meg Jolly says, this is freedom, and there's no greater joy or relief than that for me. It's the flexibility to exist and thrive outside of society's boxes in which I've never belonged, pursue a lifelong passion, and have a fluid lifestyle that works around raising a young son so I can be present for him and enjoy the little moments. Having spent years in miserable traditional careers, this whole career brings me joy, and I'm so grateful for it. Edwin Downward says, right now, my greatest joy comes from being able to look back over a day and seeing my progress in my writing endeavours. Ida says, making people laugh, smile, be happy, making it happen with my writing and the jokes, creating stories and providing escapism for other people brings me joy. And then Ember May said, this episode was like a hug. Thanks, guys. It also made me take a step back from going from task to task to examine the parts that really spark joy for me. Don't get me wrong. I love that I am able to do this, but I think I've fallen into the monotony of going from one task to the next. So the things that really spark joy for me are: 1, starting a new project, outlining and fast drafting; 2, finishing projects. I love hitting publish each and every time. There's a real zen that washes over me when I've completed a project and let it go. 3, I really love designing graphics and like to promote my stories. I just hate scheduling and captioning them.
Beautiful. Okay, so question of the week. Are you ready?
No.
I don't know if you're going to like this one or not. We'll find out. So, bit of setup, as there always is. In the end of March 2020, we began this podcast. At the end of March 2020, we went into lockdown, and since then have basically been swimming in the deep end of a pandemic. I feel like the pandemic definitely isn't over, but we're much more in the shallow end of the pool. This analogy came to me just seconds ago, and I feel like it's perfect, and I don't think you're appreciating it as much as I'm kind of like putting out there. So my question to you is, what have you learned about yourself during the pandemic? Because, like, let's not beat around the bush. It's been freaking rough, and I know that you've definitely had like lots of downs, some ups, but it's always interesting to see those opportunities, or see, you know, what's happened over the last however many years, and just try and work out like what you've learned and how you can use that going forward, because there's no secret you've definitely like had a lot of revelations.
Yeah, I really have. Well, I've learned a few things. I think the first thing I've learned is that I really need quiet and focus. In a way that I don't think I realized I needed. So like, I used to try and work in coffee shops, and it actually really doesn't work for me. It's too much noise, too much distraction, too many things to look at. And I've really struggled when I had people in the house. And now that Chloe's back at work, she's here today, but I actually struggle on days when she's here now that she's gone back to work, because I adjusted obviously a little bit, but I ended up having to, listen to a lot of music. I definitely felt less productive. But now I have coping mechanisms. I shut my door, I put music on, this, that, and the other, which I sort of had to learn. But in that revelation, I think has spiraled the other revelations about focus. Now, I will always be a person that likes having multiple projects. Like, I can't just do just one thing because I will burn out. But also, I've definitely realized that there is a limit to the number of projects that I can do. And more to the point, that I really, really have to be careful what I commit to doing for other people. So one of the things that I learned from coaching is that as an influencer, so I'm yellow dominant, which means I'm dominated by influencing strengths. And so our natural state is to want to have impact, want to influence, want to sort of like help and benefit and make change for other people, those kinds of things. But when the pandemic hit and I couldn't necessarily focus on all the things that I wanted to do in my own business, I defaulted to doing lots of tiny little things for other people that would have an impact. So I would do a small win for somebody else instead of working on the big wins for me. And so I think it took a year, and it's only in the last 6 weeks, when I've really started to clear the decks, that I realized quite how much I was doing for other people. And so, yeah, that is quite a long lasting and deep impact that it has had on me. And I've sort of realized the power of no, and that I can say no to things and the world is not going to end. I do not have to take up every single opportunity that comes my way. And I'm still trying to readjust to like the void that has sort of appeared, because I'm not doing all these little things for other people. There is a bit of a void, and I get agitated by that void, because obviously I like to be really busy, but I'm trying to give myself that space to just do the stuff that I want to do. Like, if I hadn't have got rid of so much stuff, I wouldn't have been able to put on this masterclass. And so in not doing as much for other people, I'm able to do more for other people, which is like the most ridiculous contradiction ever, but it's true. And in the doing more for people, it's things that, one, are my strengths. Like, they're the things that I'm really good at, and so I should be giving the world more of the things that I'm really good at, rather than doing little ridiculous things that, you know, that I'm not great at or whatever, just because it was like a small win. Yeah, so I think I have learned that I really have to be careful what I give my time to. I have also learned that I'm trying to think about how to phrase this. So I've just had so many revelations, you know, like I have discovered new genres that that I want to focus on and that I want to write in. And that in itself has given way to like a more happy, like, what's the word? Like, content feeling with the nonfiction. Like, I'm content to let that be my business and work on the fiction. Like, and don't get me wrong, like I am going to make the fiction make money, but I'm not going to ever need it to make money, if that makes sense. It will make money for me, but it doesn't have to.
Yeah.
And that is not something that I could have accepted 2 years ago, let alone a year ago. You know, that's just not something like I just couldn't have done that. And that is really quite different for me. I think it has been the greatest lesson in time spent I think I've ever had. It's also reminded me how much I need travel. And I really do feel bereft of a big part of my life. I think the year before the pandemic, I was on a plane 5 times, and that's not unusual for me. Like, a lot, that sounds very privileged, but a lot of my family don't live in the country. You know, I've got family all over the world. And so invariably I end up on a plane quite a lot. But I think I had underestimated how much that fills me and like gives me stuff. Like inspiration, culture. I don't know. It just gives me stuff. And I feel like there's something else that I'm not quite touching. I'm not quite digging deep enough to get it. But what have I learned about myself since the pandemic? I think I've learned what I want. Like, that's probably the biggest thing. I've learned what I want and what I don't want, and that I am happy to miss out on things if it means that I get to focus on the stuff that I want. Like, next year is not going to be like the last year. It is not going to be like last year. And I'm excited for that. And I am excited for the prospect of what being empowered, like, in a weird way, I feel more empowered now than I felt in a long time. I don't know. How about you?
So the reason I asked this question is because obviously you have seemed a lot more yourself and joyful and passionate and thriving in the things that you're doing, and a lot of that definitely can be attributed to all the wins and things. I think it is because I'm definitely feeling much more lighter in myself, and I wonder if part of that is because realistically this is the first stretch of time in which things have seemed somewhat normal for like a year and a half, 2 years. And like before I dive into mine, I do want to do like a little throwback and go back to those first few episodes. One of the first questions that we had was, it was something like, how are you being kind to yourself during the pandemic? And what I didn't realize was how much this podcast like helped through the last 18 months, because we said ourselves, like, the reason we started this podcast is because we don't often stop and reflect. And like, we'll be honest, we like go on sprints and we'll occasionally chat throughout the week, but we work hard, and like we're like ships sometimes passing in the night.
Yeah.
So when it comes to this podcast, we almost deliberately don't plan until like 5 minutes before we jump on camera, because that's what we built this podcast to be. It's that outlet to self-reflect and to really sort of like just take a moment to pause. And I don't know how I would have survived without it as well, because it was that fixture every week that marked a punctuation point during the week. And it was that fixture each week that gave us a chance to talk and process and bitch and moan and celebrate and all those things. Because there have been, like, I don't think you can come out of the last 18 months and not have learned anything about yourself. And a lot of what you said, you know, I could, you know, go into in depth on sort of my slant on them, but it's very, very similar. Like, it's when your only options are to like sit at home and either work, or obviously, like, I had many periods where I was looking after my son for weeks at a time because of like, he wasn't at school, and I had to share it with his mum, and the fact that she works full time and she was an essential worker. And you really do get to the point where you're like, oh God, I didn't realize how much I value just having some time to myself to work in quiet. And I'm a bit different in the sense that, like, I do like going to cafes and things. Like, I can't now just spend an entire week working at home because I get stale. I get sort of in my own head, and I like to go to cafes and just explore and, you know, and that's part of the reason that I'm out this week, because the last few weeks I have been at home and I'm a bit like, oh, I just need something a bit different. But yeah, I think it seems really like coincidental and strange that the pandemic hits as we start this podcast as a chance to reflect. And like, I didn't plan on saying any of this, but like, a big thank you to the fact that, you know, you've been there pretty much every week here with me, just chatting like shit, basically.
Oh, I'm always here to chat shit, darling.
Yeah. But yeah, like,
I think the other thing, well, I was just gonna, as you were talking, it sort of reminded me that I think how, trying to get the right words, you mentioned how you had to look after your kid for like weeks on end, and just how flexible our businesses are.
Which like, is a blessing and a curse.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because the blessing is that, you know, we were able to homeschool, we were able to, you know, do stuff, you know, I was able to take on for 8 months my son full time, and still keep my business running. Like, yeah, I very nearly burned out, but I didn't. And like, I still made money, and I still published, and I still continued. Like, I do not ever want to go back to that, because that was horrific.
More productive at times.
But it's the pressure. I work really well under pressure. But I suppose I'm sort of grateful. I don't want to say grateful, because I work fucking hard to build my business. I'm not grateful, but I am also grateful that I have created this. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a weird sort of way to
Sacha could have done novel and just be a job being miserable, being like, one day I'm going to be a writer. So you worked hard, you made it happen.
I did make it happen, and I am incredibly relieved. And because I think if I had been in my old corporate job, I don't think I'd have survived.
I had so many thoughts about that during the pandemic, because my brother works at a pub. He runs a pub somewhere, I won't say where, I'm keeping some of my life mysterious. And he basically was paid to be off work for months at a time. And as I was working, like, I'm sat there and, like, you know, occasionally you'll talk to people and they'll say like, oh, have you had to be like furloughed or anything like that? And I was like, the more and more I thought about it, the more I was like, even if I was furloughed, I'd be doing this.
Yeah, I have to say I was a bit resentful about that. I think
I could have got a part-time job a couple of weeks before the pandemic and then tried to like ride on furlough and then done that and my work. But everyone.
Well, I just think it's unfair that lots of people got furloughed, and yet we had to run our own businesses with zero help and full-time homeschool and look after our kids and continue managing the houses. And now we're getting taxed more money. But that's a political comment, and I'm not going to get into my rant, because if I get into the rant, I'm going to start swearing.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this is some of the things that I have learned from the pandemic. Like you say, saying no and really valuing the things that you want to work on. It's very easy to, and I think we've spoken on this on an episode at some point, but there is definitely an element of when you kind of get going with this kind of work, you do take on as much as you can, because you have to sift through and find out what things work for you, what you're good at, what you enjoy, and find those crossovers. And some of that is just, experimenting and taking things on. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like that's the thing. I don't think I realized how much time, like I only really feel like I'm starting to settle into my business now.
Mm-hmm.
And we're 2.5 years out of having left our day jobs. Like that first year was definitely about survival, like just survive, because at the end of that first year, it was a milestone significant enough. I felt like I believed that I could continue to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then like that whole second year was just consumed by lockdown. And I don't like, and so it was another year of survival but in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel like we've really had a proper chance at this. I feel like it will be 4 years before.
Oh, easy.
You do know what I mean? Because like we're at sort of 2.5 years. The next 6 months will be, hopefully, fingers crossed, still coming out of the pandemic. And then I'll feel like we'll get a really good run at a good
Mm-hmm.
year where we're not being shafted by whatever we're being shafted by.
Yeah. Yeah. And it came in, so throughout my experience of the pandemic, I discovered that I had so many real extreme peaks of productivity followed by like real troughs of just depletion. And I'm someone who I do well with consistency as much as I can. Like I try to, again, as much as I can, it doesn't always work, really try and hit what I need to each week in terms of workload and stuff. And I work so hard for about 3 or 4 days, and then I just sink for 2, 3, sometimes a week. And managing that around looking after a kid and just keeping the business alive and not being around other people, it was a lot. But at the same time, like now that all that looks like it's moving into the past, it does mean that I value again the work that I'm doing. I value again having the opportunity to actually try to be more consistent. And like it still makes me laugh because my word of this year was still balance. And I am it's definitely a work in progress. It's something that is slowly happening within like the boundaries of the work that I'm doing. I am lessening my plate more and more each day. But at the same time, as some certain things lessen, you then have to do more to then be able to do less. And it's such a so an insight into Dan's mentality. Back in 2017, I was offered the opportunity to work with Michael Anley and write some books with him, which have served me very well over the last few years. Back then, while I was working a full-time day job, and also I think my son would have been 3 or 4 around that point, I remember promising myself, work your ass off, write fast. You'll only have to do it for a year or 2.
Wow.
That was 4 years ago. And I'm still very much in that, like running on that treadmill. And I'm finally getting to the point where like it is beginning to slow, but it's taken a lot of zigzag paths to try and get to where I need to go. And again, coming back to the point that you said, I feel a lot more purposeful about what I want. And because I've done, lots of different stuff left, right, and center over the past few years, it feels justified. It doesn't feel like, a thing that I'm trying. It feels like a thing that I'm actively working towards because I know that brings me joy. And go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say, isn't it funny that both of our phrases for the year, we sort of came into the year full of gusto of doing it, and then in that middle we were like, fuck. Both of us, it didn't look like we were kind of match those. But now actually coming towards the end of the year, you look like you're all so much more balanced than you were at the beginning of the year. And but in a different way than you probably expected, which I think is so funny. My phrase for the year was
survive.
income focus finishing shit.
Wow. One of those shifted.
Pardon?
One of those shifted.
The finishing shit.
No, the income.
Oh, yeah.
and I think it's crazy because I didn't even remember that I'd put focus on mine, but I feel like my focus is really starting to level up. Obviously I'm finishing shit, and my income, like I'll tell you after this, but this is going to be a very nice month for me.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't think I've said this on the podcast. Have I said it on the podcast?
I don't know what you're going to say.
Very conservative.
If it's the thing that was the thing, you haven't announced it.
Oh, well, oh no. I was just going to say, like, by the end of this tax year, I should hopefully, touch wood, all of the words, fingers crossed, surpass my old income. Yeah, I mean, I haven't done it yet, so I'm not like, that's why I'm sort of tentatively saying it, but I've sort of looked at projections.
That's looking good.
And it's looking like it might go that way. That I'm just going to say it might, maybe, because I may not do it. And if I don't do it, my competition will rage like the dying of the light. But you know, I am close. It's going to be a close call. Yeah. So I'm very excited.
Keep us posted.
Yeah.
I think the other thing for me really has been human connection. Like the fact that, you know, we've had this podcast, the fact that it seems very sort of serendipitous that my boot campers basically demanded that I continue providing a boot camp for the next however long. And, you know, that's all evolved into Activated Authors. And there is just a community of people that I meet up with several times a week that you can check in. They're like just wonderful people. I wonder how different the pandemic would be without video conferencing, because I was basically alone in a house for most of it. Like I obviously had my son that I still you know, shared responsibilities with his mum, and went through all that. But outside of that, I didn't really see friends. My family are about 80 miles away. Like there would have been little. And what I'm finding particularly now is, and this is something I'm working on very much in my own psychology, is there's a real hesitancy to meet up with people, because although things are waning and obviously cases are coming down and like deaths aren't as high and things, because I've not been like really allowed around people for a year and a half, just going out in public is still, it's still difficult, the wrong word, but there's still like hesitancy, there's still a bit of friction. And so then hanging out with friends, and like the idea of like quite a few of my friends have started going back to concerts and, you know, busy events and things, and I'm still like, I don't know if I'm there, but I really want to get back into that because I fucking miss it and life is short.
Yeah I have to say I've had a couple of really high anxiety days about like traveling this week. What day is it today? Thursday. Tuesday was really, really bad. Like I had tight chest, I was very borderline panic attack. Like I am very anxious about going, but also see the fear, beat the fear. Like I will not allow myself to be consumed by fear. But yeah, I completely understand that. There is I will talk to you about something else connected to people and the pandemic after the call.
Tease.
Yeah,
but yeah,
sorry.
no, I potentially might be very potentially might be going to the States in February, and there's a big part of me that's like I don't know yet. But again, like it's been nearly 2 years of not being able to do stuff, and I don't know, there's a lot to work through. But yeah, I think for us, although the pandemic has definitely, you know, thrown heaps of shit in our faces, it's definitely been,
We've come out swinging.
A trial by fire that has kind of like honed the blade very sharply. Like we've had to swim or sink. And like you say, we're coming up to 3 years of being full-time doing what we're doing, which is insane to think about. But yeah, I just thought it'd be a nice little check mark, because actually this might be the reason I asked the question. Like I think I'm looking for that punctuation mark to finish the pandemic for me.
There's not going to be a punctuation mark.
I mean, a psychological one.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
So yeah, there we go. So our question to you this week is, what have you learned about yourself during the pandemic? Get involved in the quarterly challenge. All the information is over on Facebook. Pop down what you're going to pledge to do and make sure you do it. Otherwise, you'll have to stuff your face full of crackers and whistle a merry jig. And we will see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Hungry for more?
If you enjoyed this podcast, you can hear more of my angelic accent and Dan's dulcet tones on our other podcasts.
For more of me, check out the Great Writers Share podcast.
For more of me, listen to the Rebel Author podcast. We'll be back next week holding each other to account as Dan
and Sacha
become
next level
authors.
I think I've fallen behind.
That's a book every 3 days.
Yeah. I
Fucking
normally read a book every other day.
Life is hard for Sacha Black.
I
cannot read. The books I want to read. I have to do other admin, and it takes 4 days instead of 2. Meanwhile, Dan is still on the same book from March.